Hello and welcome to Raider HQ After Dark. I'm your host Raider, and today I'm bringing you the video about how the standard claims processing actually works. So this video I'll be talking about an overview as to how your claim goes from start to finish. And then in subsequent videos I will break down each stage into a longer video because the different stages have different subtle nuances to them. So let me share my screen real quick, and I have come up with a high-tech uh, overview as to what actually happens. So it starts out with the claim actually being submitted. So once your claim is submitted, it is then routed to development. Okay. And then there are many stages within development and how that works, and that'll be covered in a separate video. Each one of these bolded categories will be covered in a separate video. But the reason why I'm putting this out there is to kind of show how it bounces around. So when development is when if you requested additional records that you wanted to be received from, say, like a VA, or you need your service treatment records pulled if you're filing an original claim. This is where all of that happens, to include exams. So once all of the development is done, or like let's say there's different stages that need to be done, when the claim is actually to the point that it can be no additional development can be done on it, it either gets sent upwards to the rating authority. Now we call this, whenever this happens, this is known as pass-through claim. When your claim is completely done and we want to hold on to it to give it to a local rater, to have them rate, then your claim would be given directly to rating, and that's called a pass-through claim. But normally what happens is there's many different stages in the development process in which the claim is given back to the National Work Queue. And that's at station 499. And you can think of the National Work Queue as a placeholder location. So they assign your claim to the National Work Queue if we have created a tracked item, say for like if your service treatment records have not been received yet and it needs to wait for 30 days, then we actually would send it to the National Work Queue to wait. And it gets put into a queue, so whenever the tracked item that we created for the development that is pending is completed, then it gets slotted to be rerouted back to either, the RO in question to have additional development be done, or it gets routed to rating. So that's kind of it can bounce back and forth here up to as many times as needed, or it can be given directly to rating. Now, an example of whenever a pass-through claim would happen is if you submitted your own private DBQs and they were found to be sufficient for rating purposes and no additional development is needed. Think of like an increase. Then your claim would go directly to the rating board. But if you're filing an original claim in which you have no service treatment records, you've got no VA MC records that have been pulled, then you're going to have it be to where it bounces back and forth between the National Work Queue and development. Now, whenever it comes from the National Work Queue, it can be assigned to the same regional office or it can be assigned to a different regional office. There is no specific criteria as to how it gets, who it gets given to, unless it's a centralized processing claim that requires a special regional office for, say, like radiation, MST claims, Blue Water Navy, things like that. But this is just for the overall general knee condition claim, you file it. So once development is completed, then it gets routed to rating. Now this can be from the National Work Queue or from, with in-house, from one VSR to a rater. And then once you get to rating, what happens is rating's kind of a one and done situation for the most part. If there's no additional development that needs to happen, then the rater will either uh, finish their rating, at which point in time it will be either given back to the national work queue to be routed to a regional office, for the next phase of the claim, or it will be done pass through again to be given to a local promulgator and then subsequently authorizer in order to finish your rating. Now, the promulgation and authorization phase of the claims process is not widely known by the veteran community. I call these individuals dates and times because I have a great amount of disdain for them, because what they do is they actually they review your claim to make sure, in VBMS A is a form of VBMS, which is the program that we use to review your claim. They check to make sure that your payments are correct, that there's no outstanding debts, that there's, they deal with, are the effective dates correct? Is the pay that you're going to be given correct? So dates and times is what I call them. It's kind of a derogatory term, but I don't really care for them. So what happens then is the rating will give it to dates and times and through a pass-through method. Now, let's say that there is something wrong with the rating decision, or not the rating decision, but let's say one of the contentions isn't complete. One of the big ticket items is the VSR, who is mostly known for development. The VSR forgot to do an increase exam. Well, what'll happen is the rater will try to rate everything that they can, and then they will defer back to have, the missed development completed. Be it like you forgot to get records, you forgot to do an exam. So that is known as a partial rating. So what happens is that the rater will then defer back. That's what this green line is. And they will defer back to have that one thing done. So the rating will continue on. They'll rate what they can, and then it gets deferred. The action that needs to be done gets deferred back. The deferral process itself is a one-way process. It only goes backwards. So the rating can only defer to development. If promulgation or authorization find an issue with the rating decision, then they can also defer back to the rater. And then the rater, if needed, if it's a development issue that's wrong, or if it's a rating code sheet or narrative issue that's wrong, it'll stay with the rater. But if it's an issue that has to do with development that's wrong, then they'll defer back to the rater, and then the rater will defer to development. And the reason why I say this is because I have heard some insanity come from some content creators about the deferral process. The deferral process does not work forward. It only works backwards. You may only defer back in time, back to the prior stage of the claim. So that can happen. So that's rating in a nutshell, is that they review all the development. They're responsible for all the development. And if everything is fine, and they're able to rate, grant or deny, it doesn't matter. But let's say all the development is substantially complete, then the claim will either go to the national work queue to be assigned to an RO for promulgation or authorization, or it will be given directly to promulgation and authorization to have the dates and times aspect of it reviewed, and then once complete will be issued to the veteran. They'll issue a decision. So promulgation, authorization, my favorite people in the whole wide world, mostly because these individuals have a high probability of delaying your claim for no reason. So what happens is that promulgation is made up of VSRs, and their job is to actually review to make sure that all of their task 11s, task 12s, are completed. And this is to make sure that your address is correct, your phone number is correct, you were given your 5103 duty to assist notice. Basically, just housekeeping. So they do a lot of housekeeping issues. And if they find something like, the most deferred back issue is the power of attorney or the VSO is not accurate. Okay, that's one of the big ticket items that they send back for. Another thing that they send back for a lot of the time has to do with effective dates. Like, was the effective date, that you assigned in your rating decision accurate based upon the theory of service connection that was applied? So, oftentimes we see this with, if you're granted for Terra and you met criteria before August 10th, 2022, technically you should get an earlier effective date potentially, depending on the circumstances of, the your evidence. So oftentimes promulgation, and that's what promulgation does, but authorization, they're the ones that actually like review to make sure that the rating decision is accurate, that all the effective dates are in there. And what's weird is authorization can defer back to promulgation within their own house, or they can defer it back, like I said, to rating and subsequently to development if need be. But the authorization part, this can take up to a week once they get it. For a rater, it can take up to a week once they get it. Development's where the major point of your time sync happens, because there's many different times in which development can go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But if something needs to be deferred, it's typically, if it needs to be deferred for code sheet issues or some kind of rating issue, that can be resolved in a day. So that can be where a lot of the times veterans see, if they look at va.gov and they look at the steps, this is oftentimes where you'll see a lot of bounce back, where it bounces from step 1 or step 7 to whatever. We don't follow the steps, by the way. I just need to make that abundantly clear. I have no clue about what the steps mean or anything like that. But if you're at promulgation and it goes back to the rater, as long as a new examination's not needed, that can really go back the same day. If a new exam's needed, then you're looking at a minimum of 30-day delay in your claim to have it go back, and then the tracked items be created and the exams be created, and then it'll, then we start the process over. But so deferrals, the main thing I want to take away from this, and this is just an overview, I will go through each one of these three individually. Although I will say that promulgation and authorization, I have never done that job, so I just know a very generalistic overview as to what they do, and I will not give it credit only to insult it, because I don't necessarily care for them all that much as a whole. I mean, there's some good people in there, and the work is important, but overall they defer back for, like, I don't understand why you did what you did. And I'm like, yes, I know, because you don't do this job. And what's weird about this assembly line process is the rater is the decision maker. Like, the rater makes all the decisions, and then you have somebody after you that questions your decisions constantly, but has no functional working understanding of this job. So that's, if I had Director Collins's ear, I might actually say that, because this is a GS12, this is a GS11, and then this is a GS10 for pay scale. You have the most competent person in the middle of the process. And I don't understand that. Like, I do not understand, because you get these frivolous and erroneous deferrals that do nothing but delay the claim for the most part. I mean, there are some instances where, hey, look, the DD214, your dates of service are not accurate. Oh, okay, cool. Go ahead and fix it. That was kind of a speed error type situation. But for the most part, the deferral process from promulgation and authorization, I have won 90% of all the deferrals that have come back. Because when you get a deferral, you can request to have it mitigated if it's erroneous. And I do that all the time, because they're almost all the time erroneous. So this is a major, this deferral process right here is a major delay in claim oftentimes. Now, it depends on the skill of the rater, because I hear garbage in, garbage out. So if you have a bad rater, then these deferrals from promulgation and authorization might be more valid. In my case, I have one of the lowest deferral rates um, to cause them, to send them back, because I'll do all the stuff myself. But I have some of the lowest deferral ratings for, like, hey, look, you didn't do this right, in my entire regional office. So I just, whenever I look at this, it annoys me because it really does come down to quality, though. I mean, I guess it is an essential function. If you have bad raters, then promulgation and authorization are the last line of defense. But like I said, they don't have a functional working understanding for rating, so it doesn't necessarily matter. So once prom and auth are completed with, once they get it, and let's say their situation, they don't need to defer it back, everything's good to go, then they'll send out the final notification to the veteran with your 36-page, rating decision that basically has so much in it that doesn't matter to you. There's only one real page that matters to you. Yeah, they're the ones that send this out. So that's basically it. And this particular process right here, like I said, is for a normal claims process. So this counts for, when you submit a 526EZ for normal conditions like knee, back, or you do a supplemental claim, this process is the same for that. Where even for a higher level review, the if you have a duty to assist error or a CU and E, then once the claim switches over to an EP 040, then the claims process starts here. So you technically do have the same process once the DRO is done with the their higher level review portion, and then they hand it off to the normal claims process. Then it would technically start in this process at that point in time. But that's about all I got for you. So if you're interested in knowing more about how the internal process works, this is essentially it. Like I said, there are some specialized claim types that do not follow the same process, but overall, this is what it looks like. So the next video I'm going to talk about is development, and technically it has 3 subcategories. Rating doesn't have a subcategory. It's either go or no go. And promulgation has 2 different set of subcategories. So this will be a shorter video just because I don't know that much about prom and authorization, other than they just anger me on a daily basis. But that's about it. So once again, I hope you find this video to be informative and helpful. Rater out.